With all the clutter and noise and activity and everything going on around us, sometimes it's really hard to focus on what it really is that matters. What's that thing that I should be doing next? My guest today, Christa Hutchins, has a wealth of information, both tools and tips that are invaluable in helping us decide exactly what it is that we should be doing next. Listen to the interview. I think you're going to pull out all kinds of nuggets of information that's going to be helpful to you. And be sure to listen all the way to the end, where you will learn about an opportunity to enter to win Christa's book, Moving Forward, Inspiration for the Go-Getter Jesus Girl. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. I am here today with Christa Hutchins. I am really excited to share the information. She's got a lot going on, and so we had to kind of narrow it down a little bit. But we met recently at the Christian Podcasters Conference that you heard about in episode 100. If you haven't listened to that, you'll want to go back and listen. But today I really am excited to bring to you Christa Hutchins. And she has just a world of experience, and she's going to share a little bit of it with us. We don't have time to go into everything. So Christa, why don't we start out? Would you please just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here with you. I am a chemical engineer by degree, and I work full-time in the engineering and construction industry as a project manager. I live in Louisiana with my husband in my delightfully empty nest, which my
I love
children
that.
they always get offended when I say that. My kids do.
Well, it's funny you say that because when my son went to college, I used to tell people that if I had known it was going to be this fun, I would have kicked him out years before. But
Absolutely, absolutely. So thankfully, our both of our children are nearby and are responsibly adulting, and so we see them often. So it's not so bad as being way far away. So that's nice.
that's
But
a gift. I'm sorry
yeah,
I interrupted. Carry on, please.
yeah. So that's kind of a nutshell of our life. I also have an what I call sometimes a business tree, kind of a ministry slash business that I call Do a New Thing, where I serve Christian women who lead and communicate and help them with project management, with organizing and prioritizing their own schedules and plans and working towards their goals in ways that are really healthy and are focused on the progress and the process, not necessarily focused on a very specific result. So we want to be focused on how we're growing and the progress that we're making, and not feel like a failure if we don't make that very, very specific target result. So yeah, that's what I do, and I've been doing Do a New Thing for about 4.5 years, and love serving God's girls in this way.
Oh, I think that is so cool, and it sounds to me like that the work that you do can really benefit from any type of, whether you own a business or you're working in the corporate world or wherever. It's really there to help us just be organized and be accountable and all of that. Is that right?
Yeah. I love I feel like, God just kind of uniquely prepared me to take what I learned in my job for all those years, that I thought was completely separate from any ministry or kingdom work that I might do. And now all of a sudden I'm finding that all along He was preparing me for something that I had no idea about. So that's been really fun to see how I can take those project management principles and use those in service for Him.
Yeah. No, I think that that is really great. And I really believe that, I mean, that's my message,
Hmm.
is He is using all of our experiences, our talents, our skills, and just kind of leading us along the path. And then all of a sudden one day we're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that all of this
Right.
was going to come together and look like this for this
Right.
season, and it
Yeah,
changes. It's not a forever thing, but
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's very cool. And I'm a little envious of you in that he showed you that business tree. Is that how you say it?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He showed you that other avenue while you were still in the work world.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I, my story is a little different in that I was at the the point where I was eligible for early retirement.
Mm.
Felt called to completely retire and step into a whole new business, starting my own entrepreneurial, which is kind of a crazy thing to do at this stage in life.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey. I've learned more lessons in the last almost 3.5 years now than I care to imagine sometimes, because it's I've learned that I had more to learn about myself.
Mm.
And I had all of this professional expertise and everything, but part of the journey was about figuring out who I am and whose I am. So
Yeah, I would love to be at that point where I was able to retire. That would be really awesome and do this full time. But that's not really what God showed me or promised me when he put this on my heart to do. All he said then was serve his girls. And that's what I've done. And I feel if you look in the coaching and project management space, what you find is really high prices that a lot of God's girls can't afford as they are just getting started and building what he's called them to do. And I just am passionate that those women deserve the same high quality coaching and resources that everybody else does. And so by working full time, my full time work sort of funds the ministry and the business side. So although I do charge for what I do, it's very, very reasonable. And so, and I'm only able to do that because my full-time job still kind of funds it. So I think sometimes when we have these big dreams and plans and things that we want to do, that sometimes God uses the resources we have to allow us to do the things that he's called us to do. And where we may want to separate those two things and say, well, I can only do this new business, God, if you're going to, fund it and give me, I'm going to make enough income from it in order for it to be my main thing. Sometimes God says, I'm going to fund it from over here. So you just keep doing that. And I have to work at that. I have to always remember that employer is my source right now. And so I need to honor my employer. I need to make sure I'm giving them my full effort and my full intention during the workday, and then use my proceeds from that to help be able to have a business that is both affordable but also sustainable for me, and I don't end up completely burned out. So I think it's just a balancing for me right now.
well, and I really love that you shared that, because I think sometimes when we get that calling to
Hmm.
move on to something different, we lose sight of the fact that we have a commitment already.
Mm,
We need to finish what we started. We need to
yeah.
fulfill that commitment. And to me, a big part of it is whatever that calling is. It could be another job. It could be our children or grandchildren, taking care of
Hmm.
an aging parent. Whatever it is, our purposes can be so varied, but we need to live in integrity with the responsibilities that we have as well. And so there
Absolutely.
is that balancing act. So I love that. The
Yeah.
reason I said a few minutes ago that I was a little jealous is because I
Mhm.
really did love my job.
Right. And
And
I do too. And I'm thankful. I've always been very grateful that God has put me in a job that I love. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with right now. And it's never there. For the most part of my career, there has not been a time where I really hated going to work. So it's been great. He's really shown favor on my work and my career, and so I'm thankful for that.
well, yeah, and the other thing that I think is really awesome is sometimes we can get stuck in that career and
Mm,
not be happy and not really understand why. And what I love is that and I think your mission and mine are very similar, in that we can help them come in and get organized, or whatever it is that's
Mm-hmm.
required, and help them kind of reframe what they're doing and what's maybe challenging them, so they can fall in love with that work that they do.
Right.
And whether it's, like for you, it's maybe getting them organized, helping them get organized and all of that. For me, it might be completely changing the way that they experience a relationship in
Mm-hmm.
their work, or stepping back and changing the way that they interact with Jesus throughout
Right.
the work world. Because that was what I found myself doing, was keeping two separate lives. I've got my life, I've got
Mm-hmm.
my professional life, and not intermingle the two. So I think it's important that people realize it's okay to just
Right.
be authentically who we are. So
Right. Right.
very cool.
Yep.
Let's talk about, and I just love this. You have a book,
I do.
and I love the name of your book. Tell us about the book a little bit.
The book is called Moving Forward Inspiration for the Go Getter Jesus Girl. And that's what I call my community, Go Getter Jesus Girls. And it's, because it's women who have dreams that they're ready to take action on. And so we often talk about, somewhere in between the going and the getting, is the part that God does. And so that's what I really try to focus on in the book. It's a devotional style book. It's not, to me, it's not like deeply spiritual enough that I'm willing to call it a devotional. It's more sort of inspirational, that takes familiar scriptures and familiar stories, and puts them through the lens of what we do, in our calling, the work that we do, the ministry that we do, and the service that we do. Because I really feel like, we're really great at going to God's Word for advice on our relationships, on our parenting, on our personal development and personal growth. And we don't often look at it for those very practical decisions that we need to make every day as business or ministry leaders, or leaders in the workplace. And so we don't we don't really think of the Bible in that terms, except at a very high level. And so what I love is to take the scripture and find places where God has been very strategic in the way that he used his people, the way he instructed his people, the resources he provided his people, and help us look at those stories from the standpoint of how we grow in our calling, in our ministry and business. And so that's what the book does. In just, there's 28 little short, devotional style things based around a scripture that will help you, get unstuck, if you're stuck. There's 4 sections, in it, around, executing, dreaming a dream, making a plan, doing the thing, finding your people. Those are the 4 sections. And so those are the 4 things I think everybody needs to do. And the Bible has given us a lot of great direction around how to do
Oh, I love that, and I can't wait. I'm going to have to get that for myself. I
that.
think that sounds like a great one. One of the things that you said that I really resonate with is, and I don't remember the exact words you use, but
Mhm.
I refer to it as, it's kind of like, we can go to the Word and we can get ideas and instruction on what to do, but just knowing it isn't enough. We have to go
Right,
do it.
right.
And sometimes it gets really fuzzy between what is ours and what is his.
Mhm.
And knowing when it's time to just take a step back and rest in knowing that we've done what we can do, and that we just need to let go of the outcome and let him do that work for us.
Yeah, I think that that's a really hard place to find right now, because you do have people, very well-intentioned people, who are telling you go for your dreams and work hard and hustle and grind and do it until you sacrifice to make it happen. And on the surface, that sounds very godly. Sacrifice yourself to make God famous, to do something great for the Lord. Sacrifice yourself. But I think we can get too caught up in that, because we're not really sacrificing, for God. We're sacrificing for our own name sometimes, and for our own our own benefit. And so I think it's definitely a hard place to balance right now, because I think there are not enough voices out there saying, well, you have the opposite spectrum also. You've also got the other end that just says rest, self-care, don't get stressed out, don't overdo it. And somewhere in there is a balance that is godly hard work, chasing after what he called you to do, but also caring for yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so that's the place that I really try to help women find, that in between place that feels satisfying and worthwhile, because you know you're doing what God called you to do, but you're also pursuing it diligently and with all respect and responsibility for what He's called you to do.
Yeah, you a little while ago you said it, and I think you said it well. It's a matter of, doing that next step. We don't always get to see what the outcome
Mm-hmm.
is, but when you were talking about your business, and you were building it so that it could be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're doing that all in, grind, 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 working 12 hours a day every day, that's not sustainable. Our health isn't going to
No,
survive that. And so,
right.
yeah, we need to find that. So it's funny because, yeah, my lesson has been since retirement, and I got all these certifications and trained on all of this stuff, and they all promised that you were going to make all this money. All you had to
Mm-hmm.
do was this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my message evolved very quickly towards, it's not about the money. Seek first the
Mm-hmm.
kingdom of God, and He will. And so when I was talking about the knowing and the doing,
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that, but I was really trying hard to make it happen myself. And it
Right.
took me a while to just sit back and listen and hear Him say, I have provided for you. You
Mm.
have a retirement income. You're just fine right now. We're focusing on your message, and we're focusing on you trusting me.
Mm. Yeah.
Period. And
Yeah.
that's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is hard to get there.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it's so worth it,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is. It's a place of a lot of grace and peace and joy. And it's a pleasure to be there.
Yes. So one of the things that you have available for people, and I really love this idea. I can see where I can use this in my business and writing my book, probably just on ideas for, family things even. You have an idea capture system, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for most of us, and especially with a lot of the people that I work with, our brains are filled with so much input. We get ideas from everywhere, from things we read, things we see on TV, things we see other people doing. And there's just so many ideas until they are just swirling around like a tornado. And you can't focus on what you are really supposed to be doing because of all these things just floating around. But you're so afraid that if you don't do something about them right now, you're going to forget about them, or you're going to lose the opportunity. And so we end up kind of chasing shiny objects. Whatever good idea we heard about last, we start chasing after that until we've heard of a different idea. But I think that we have sort of a biblical mandate to do something differently than that. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, Paul tells us, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. And so we often think about that in terms of our negative or sinful thoughts. But what if we applied those to that constant stream of ideas? Because when we have all those ideas going on all the time, of the things I could do or should do or ought to do, I'm not focusing on what God really called me to do right now. And so being able to capture those ideas and park it in a place to rest while I pray and seek the knowledge of God, it takes away all of the urgency of constantly thinking, I need to do something with every little thing that pops in my head. So I think that is sort of the biblical guidance God gives us to take those thoughts captive, put them somewhere so that we can obey Christ in what He's already told us to do, and then and then let them grow and mature on their own, and then pull them out when it's time.
Oh,
So that's why I've tried to create some systems that allow us to capture those ideas.
that is so beautiful. I really love that because I think that's one of the main things that can keep us stuck is if we're
Mm,
always chasing after the latest idea. And I actually had this conversation in a coaching session a while back, and kind of came to the conclusion with the other individual that not all great ideas aren't necessarily meant for right now. They're
right.
just the seed planted for another season, and they have to germinate, like you just said. So I
Yeah.
love that. So
Yeah.
you
So
have kind of a
yeah,
process for us?
yep, there's 5 steps to create a capture system. And the first one is probably the most obvious, and that's where people usually start, is a space to capture it. So whether it's a notebook or some electronic means like the Notes app in your phone. Some people use something as simple as that. You can use a Trello board or other project management software board where you can store and organize your ideas. Um, but the most important thing about your space to capture is that it needs to be really accessible, super accessible to you. So you carry it around with you, you have it with you all the time, you can very quickly access it and jot something down as it crosses your mind, and so you get it out of your head quickly. So that's why I typically recommend something electronic, because we all these days have our phones with us. I personally use a Trello board where I capture all those ideas. I just throw them on there as they come up. And so it's handy. Some people I know are still, paper princesses. They're not the digital diva yet. So you have to have your paper planner, but in your paper planner or your notebook or wherever it is, have a place that you want it small enough you can carry with you in your purse or whatever, but have a place where you can jot those things down as they come to you. So that's the first thing, is a capture system, like a space to capture. And then the second step is to make sure that your capture place is more than just a list of ideas, because it could become just a big old long to-do list. The whole point of capturing them is so that they can grow and become fleshed out and mature before you actually do something with them. So in the space where you capture things, you need to make sure you leave space for it to grow. So if you're doing it in a notebook, maybe only put 1 or 2 ideas on each page. Or if you're doing it in an app or someplace, where make sure you have a place that you can leave notes and comments. So as you flesh out those ideas, you have space to keep everything right there together with that idea. So that's number 2, is making it more than just a list. Number 3 is making it a place for shiny objects. The worst thing about all of our ideas is that they, like I said earlier, they distract us from things we really want to do. And so once we have that idea, let's say I've decided that I want to paint my living room, let's just say, even something like that. And then I run across an article about what are the current colors, living room colors right now. Well, I could stop everything I'm doing and start reading that article. And then that article is going to link to a specific type of paint. And then that article is going to link to a specific type of way that I can do some faux texture, and before I know it, I'm all the way down the rabbit hole. Um, and so when you have your capture system, and it becomes the home for all those shiny objects. So in your capture system, you have, I want to paint the living room. And then every time you come across an article related to that, just drop the link right there. So don't go read it. Just know that when I get ready to paint the living room, that I'm going to have all the information that I need to do that all right there in my capture system. So that's step number 3, the home for shiny objects.
Love it.
Step number 4 is creating the habit. Now, this is probably the hardest part, because this is the part we're not used to doing. We're not used to taking that mean, literally, it can take as short as 30 seconds, 15 seconds to just stop, grab the phone, grab the notebook, write the idea down. And so, what I suggest is that in order to establish the habit, try setting a reminder in your phone or designating a specific time every day to just do a quick brain dump of whatever you can think of at that minute. Just do a quick brain dump, write down what you can think of, and then close it up and go on with the rest of your day, maybe once or twice a day. The more you use the system, the more it's naturally going to become the first place you go when you have an idea. So, but you have to create the habit first, or you'll never use it. You'll use it the first day, and you will have. I bet most people are like me. We have probably a stack of 20 journals that all have the first 2 pages written on them, right? And because when I want to do something new, I can't go back to one of those journals because they already have 2 pages used, right?
I learned you can tear those 2 pages out and just
I
start over
know.
again.
But your idea capture system will be the same way. It will be the 2 page journal unless you create the habit, intentionally create the habit to get into it every day and capture whatever is on your brain at the time. And the more you use it, the more natural that becomes. Um, and then the fifth step is to process, filter, and prioritize. So, of course, that notebook or that app gets filled with all these ideas and then all the little pieces of information you've gathered related to them. About every 3 months or so, I recommend that as you are looking at your goals and plans for the upcoming quarter, go back into your idea capture system and ask yourself if any of these ideas have they matured to the point where I'm ready to act on them. Are any of them outdated now and they don't matter, so just get rid of them? Or maybe they're not consistent with your mission and your purpose. It's a good idea, but it's a good idea for somebody else. It's not for you. It's easier to recognize an idea's true value after you've had a little bit of distance from it. When you first think of it, of course, it's the most important, best idea you've ever in your life had. But when you've had a little bit of distance from it, you can be more objective about whether that idea really fits into what you're called to do right now. So that's the 5 steps. Make your space to capture, make it more than a list, make it a home for shiny objects, create the habit, and process, filter, and prioritize. So once you have a good solid idea capture system, you will experience such a peace that you are able to put things somewhere. You won't forget about them. They are a place you can easily access and go back and get to them. And that leaves your brain power open to focus on what God's really got in front of you right now, instead of focusing on what you could do or would do or should do.
I'm sitting here thinking of applications of that. And the 2 places that I can see where this would really benefit me is, one, I find some of my best ideas are right out of the shower or in the shower. They don't always last long enough to, get ready for the day and come to the office. And so I actually have a little notebook in my bathroom that I can just jot them down the minute I get out, and then I can transfer them later. So I see that, taking that notebook and transferring those ideas into this Trello or whatever would be great. The other one that I'm really intrigued with trying is to do that brain dump activity at the end of the day to see if that won't free my mind. My mind really likes to work overtime while I'm trying to sleep.
Yes. Yeah, just get all those little, this depends. Some people find that doing that right before bed, it like sparks that brain, it's like,
We don't need
oh,
that.
yeah. So maybe give yourself a little bit before bedtime to disconnect from it again. But yeah, I think once a day, just getting it all out of your head. So, there's a scientific principle, a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect. And that's that feeling you're forgetting something, and that feeling that, when you're at that, you have these thoughts always at the wrong time when you can't act on them. You're at the grocery store when you remember that you need to make sure you don't miss this deadline somewhere else, right? And so it's not that your brain is telling you at that time to do the thing. Your brain is telling you to make a plan to do that thing. And so if you have a plan to do that thing, then your brain will shut off and it won't keep reminding you and it won't keep clouding your thoughts because it knows that you have a plan. I don't need to worry about that deadline because I know it's on my plan to do Thursday. I don't have to think about that idea because I know it's in my idea capture system and I'm going to get to it when it's ready. So the Zingerneck effect is an interesting thing that everybody experiences. Everybody has been in that place where your brain is just trying. You think your brain is trying to help you remember, but your brain is really just trying to help you make a plan.
Ah, I like that. That's
Mhm.
that's that's golden right there, girl. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been, I mean, all kinds of wonderful information. And in a little bit, I'm going to have you tell us how people can find you and connect with you and all of that. But before we go there, one of the questions I always like to ask is, do you have a favorite verse or saying that you would like to share with the listeners today?
Yeah, and it actually goes along with what we were talking about earlier. It's Matthew 11:28 through 30, but from the Message translation specifically. And this is the verse where he's talking about, come away with me if you're burdened and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest, right? But the Message translation of it is so beautiful. I mean, let me just read a few parts of it. It says, "Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." And I just love that. Every time I hear it or read it, it just makes my heart go, ah, you know, the unforced rhythms of grace. There's just something about it.
That might
Um,
be the name of this episode. I love that. So, what came to me um, is I feel that that's what God has us going through right now.
Yeah. Yes, in
Come to
this
me.
pause. We're just in a
Yeah.
pause right now. And I love too that he doesn't say, "Come to me, get away with me. Um, you know, I'll show you how to lay down and lay on the bed and not do anything." He says, "Walk with me and work with me. Learn how I do it." Because he was so good at walking and working, but also resting when he needed to. So there's so much we can learn from him about that balance between hustle and rest, and finding the right way. And it all starts when we walk with him and work with him and watch how he does it.
I like that too. The balance between hustle and rest.
Yeah.
You got all
Yeah.
kinds of good ideas. All right. That's a beautiful verse. I'm definitely gonna go look that one up and
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So has there ever been a time in your life when God just whispered in your ear and you knew he left you with that longing for more? You knew that there was something more that he was calling you to.
Yeah, I think it was a time as my children were about to get out of the house. They were, they were, I was facing my empty nest years, and I was praying about, what should I do? Where do you want me to spend my time now, Lord? Because of course I had been doing all those things that moms do, being involved in school activities and church activities with my kids. I was also at about that time facing a very difficult time in my career. It's the only period where I felt like I was very unhappy. I had been through, after years of great success, I went through a period of failure. And it was pretty public within our company, and it cost the company money, and it was embarrassing to me and embarrassing to my bosses who had supported me. And so it was a very, very hard time. And so God kind of brought the convergence of those two when I said, where do you want me? to go, Lord? What do you want me to do? That's when he led me to serve and volunteer for as a small group leader for Proverbs 31 online Bible studies. And I just laughed at that because, I don't do women's ministry. I've been in a male dominated career my entire life. Was much more comfortable around men than I was around large groups of women, and still to this day large groups of women frighten and intimidate me. And so for God to say, go get involved in women's ministry, I was like, you have lost your mind, God. You just I don't know what you're talking about. But through that, he created that longing to serve his girls. And that's where the whole Do a New Thing came out of, that place of service. And so I think that sometimes when we are in those places of longing, those places where we know there's more, I think that's when we need to roll up our sleeves and serve in wherever God has put us, whatever God's put right in front of you, wherever he's led you, serve there. And then God will lead you to the place that satisfies that longing. That's what I found, and that's what I'm continue to find, even as I'm kind of walking this whole thing out and just seeing where it leads.
That is really, really beautiful. And I believe that that's really the key to success, is
Mm-hmm.
just serve where he has led you to serve,
Mm-hmm.
and not worry about what might be down the road, how it might turn out, whether I might fail.
Right, right,
We learn the most when we experience that quote failure.
right.
It's just
Yeah.
an opportunity to learn, but it doesn't feel like it at the time, does it?
No, it didn't. And it's what God, because I had always, like I said, I was, like you said, I kept everything separate, ministry separate from work. And I always thought that what God was doing in my work was that I would be, the Christian light shining in the dark corner office, and all of that. And so he really rocked my world with the failure. And that was when I realized that God said, no, that's not what this has all been about. What this has all been about is to prepare you to serve my girls. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's just do that then and see where it goes. So I'm still just doing it and seeing where it goes. And I'm thankful for each person, honored by each person that allows me to be a part of their journey.
Yeah, I really was impressed to see that you were doing this Bible studies through the Proverbs 31.
Mm,
That's such an amazing movement group. I don't
yeah, yeah, ministry. Yeah, yeah.
ministry. Actually, one of my favorite. I have a women's, not really a devotional so much. I guess
Mm-hmm.
just short stories, whatever. And that was what God brought to me right at the beginning of this journey. In fact,
Mm,
yeah, it was the journey with the podcast and
right.
coaching and all of that. So very, very beautiful. So if the listeners would like to get a copy of your idea capture, or maybe talk to you about, you know, your coaching or
Mm-hmm.
your book or whatever, how could they find you?
They can find me at doanewthing.com, and I will create a special space just for your listeners. It'll be at doanewthing.com/longing. And I will have a place there where you can download some thoughts about the idea capture system, and then also some links to other ways that you can connect and get involved in what I'm doing. So yeah,
Okay.
that's where you find me.
That's beautiful. And I will put that in my show notes so they can find
Thank
it.
you.
So any last thoughts before we say goodbye today?
No, I think, we've covered a lot of ground, and I think the common denominator on all of it is just freeing up your mental space to allow God to do what, what He wants to do. Allow God to do with you things that you never imagined. And if your brain is always full with whether it's ideas or preconceived notions about what God wants to do with you, or all the worries and the weights of the world, then God has no space to work. So freeing our brains up allows Him to work and show us where He wants us to go.
Absolutely. And the main way to do that, honestly, is just turn everything off for at least some period of our day. I always say in the morning, don't turn the
Mm-hmm.
TV on, don't look at your
Mm-hmm.
phone. Just
Yeah.
spend some time. You can be washing dishes and doing laundry or whatever. But just be
Yeah,
quiet and let him speak. So
yeah.
that's very beautiful. I really love that.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for
Oh,
inviting me to talk. Really enjoyed this, and I appreciate all that you are doing to encourage people to really just embrace what God's called them to do and to be more than they are today.
yeah. What came to me when you were talking there at the end is the fact that I think he's always calling us to more.
Mm-hmm.
And the big key is to trust him and to just take courage and go do it, because
Right.
fear really holds us back, and
Yeah.
there's no space for fear in his plan. So beautiful. Thank you so much. I am just so blessed to have you here. I am grateful. I can't wait to get my hands on some of your materials.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's stay in touch. You take care.
Absolutely. You too.
That was some crazy good information there, wasn't it? I hope you were as excited about that interview as I was. If you are interested in the download that Christa mentioned, be sure to go to doanewthing.com/longing so that you can download that. She also has some links to a bunch of other information there. And then if you're interested in winning her book, please go to vannajohnson.com/book to enter. The drawing will close on May 10th. It'll be a random selection from everyone who's entered, and it's a great book, and I'm excited to be able to give that away. So thank you, Christa, for that. I want to just thank you for stopping by today. Your time is so valuable, and I know that, and it means everything that you came and listened today. If you know of someone who can benefit from this information, please share this episode with them. Either just forward the episode, forward them a link, send them a message, whatever works. But please, there's so much good stuff that I know people need to have and get their hands on. So thanks again for stopping. I want you to go, be blessed, and live your more.